Man named Alderson waking up in a mysterious, cube-shaped room with no memory of how he arrived. The room has a door on every side, and Alderson is wearing a uniform with his name on it. He opens a door to find an identical neighboring room, but when he steps back, the door closes automatically. After checking the doors on the floor and other walls and finding only more matching rooms, he decides to move forward. Upon entering a new room, Alderson is instantly killed, sliced into pieces by a razor-sharp grade trap. Sometime later, a man named Quentin, who is revealed to be a police officer, is navigating the rooms. He enters a cube where a man named Worth is lying unconscious. Quentin attempts to rouse him, but Worth remains unresponsive, seemingly lost in a deep stupor. Leaving Worth for a moment, Quentin opens a wall door to scout the next room, but it appears empty. When he turns back, Worth is finally awake. Though dazed, they hear a noise in a neighboring room. Quentin prepares for a confrontation, but when the door opens, it is a woman named Holloway. Realizing she is another victim, Quentin apologizes for his aggression. They soon hear someone else calling for help and find Levin in an adjacent room. Quentin helps her cross into their room, though her glasses are cracked during the process. Finally, a man named Ren climbs down through the ceiling door to join the group. Ren, who the group will soon learn is a legendary escape artist known as the Bird of Attica, begins testing the structure's lethality. He removes one of his boots and tosses it into a neighboring room. A trap immediately activates, and the boot is incinerated by a sudden burst of flame. Ren deduces that the rooms are equipped with motion sensors embedded in the walls. As they sit in the relative safety of an inactive room, they compare notes. None of them remember how they arrived. They were all following their daily routines. Worth at his desk job, Levin at her university studies, Holloway at her clinic, and Quentin on the force. When they blacked out and woke up in the uniforms. Levin suggests waiting for a rescue, but Worth, displaying a deep-seated nihilism, argues that nobody is coming. The group eventually agrees that they must find an exit. Levin begins to spiral into a breakdown, but Quentin uses his cop persona to calm her, promising to keep her safe. As they move, Ren uses his boot toss method to clear rooms. However, the group is plagued by a rhythmic, mechanical sound that seems to be echoing through the walls, growing louder and more frequent. During one transition, Levin notices a small plaque in the passage between rooms. With her cracked glasses, she reads the numbers. Every room has a unique plaque. The sheer volume of numbers leads Holloway to a grim realization. If the numbers are sequential, there could be over 500 million rooms. They only have about 3 days to live without water and food in such high-stress conditions. Ren suggests sucking on a button to keep saliva flowing, a survivalist trick to stave off the immediate effects of dehydration. Ren eventually leads them to a room where the boot toss fails to trigger anything. However, he refuses to let them enter. He notes the air is exceptionally dry and smells of faint chemicals. He explains that some rooms use molecular chemical sensors to detect hydrogen excreted from human skin. Ren admits he knows this because he has escaped from 7 high-security prisons. He tells them he is only keeping them around because he might need their shoes later, warning them that if they act foolishly, he will abandon them. Ren decides to test the dry room himself. He crosses the passage and lands safely. For a moment, it looks like his expertise has saved them. But a second later, a hidden nozzle sprays a concentrated acid directly onto his face. The hatch slams shut, trapping him. Quentin manages to pry the door back open, and Ren stumbles back into the original room, his skin literally melting off his skull. He dies in agony, leaving the group terrified. Following Ren's death, the group discusses their potential roles in the cube. Quentin believes everyone has a specific purpose and wonders if Levin's math skills are the key. Levin begins studying the plaques and realizes that rooms containing prime numbers are the ones equipped with traps. Using this theory, she successfully guides the group through several rooms. However, after 10 hours of continuous movement, they feel as though they are walking in circles. During a transition to a ceiling hatch, a young man named Kazan falls onto the group. He is non-verbal and displays repetitive behaviors, resting his forehead against the wall and making strange hand gestures. Holloway quickly realizes he is autistic and takes him under her wing, promising to protect him. The group continues to debate the origin of the cube, with theories ranging from a military project to the entertainment of a billionaire. Conflict arises when Quentin almost triggers a razor wire trap in a room Levin thought was safe. Suspicion grows toward Worth, who eventually snaps and reveals that he was hired to design the outer shell of the building. He explains that the project is a headless blunder, a forgotten bureaucratic project where no one person has the full picture. Worth's nihilistic view leads to a physical confrontation with Quentin. Worth's revelation leaves the group in a state of philosophical despair. Quentin beats Worth in a fit of rage until Levin stops him, pointing out that Worth's knowledge of the cube's dimensions is their only hope. Levin asks Worth for the specific measurements of the outer shell. By comparing his data with the room plaques, she realizes the numbers aren't just identifying traps. They're Cartesian coordinates, longitude, latitude, and altitude, that map their position within the larger structure. She calculates that they are 17,576 rooms in total, and they are currently only 7 rooms from the edge. They begin to move again, with Quentin forcing Worth to go first as a human canary for traps. They eventually reach a room at the very edge of the cube. Kazan, who has remained mostly silent, begins repeating the word trap. They open the floor hatch and see a room where the walls are lined with long spikes. Levin realizes this is a sound-activated trap. To progress, they must cross the room in absolute silence. They lower Worth in first. The tension is unbearable as the mechanical sounds of the cube groan around them. As Kazan is lowered, his pants get caught on the hatch, but Holloway manages to free him without him making a sound. Quentin is the last to enter. He moves with agonizing slowness, but just as he reaches the exit, the floor hatch makes a loud clatter. The spikes begin to deploy. Kazan makes an excited noise, and Quentin is forced to dive into the next passage, narrowly avoiding being skewered. Furious, Quentin yells at Kazan for nearly killing him. Holloway defends the boy, calling Quentin out for his increasing instability and abuse of power. When she mentions that his volatile attitude is likely why his wife left him, Quentin slaps her across the face. Upon reaching the outer shell, they find it is pitch black. They create a rope from their clothes, and Holloway volunteers to swing across the void to find an exit. A sudden mechanical shake causes the group to lose their grip on the rope. Quentin catches Holloway but intentionally lets go, dropping her to her death. He lies to the others, saying she fell. Later, Quentin attempts to isolate Levin and touches her inappropriately, but Worth intervenes. The group eventually finds themselves back in the room where Ren died. Worth realizes the rooms themselves are moving, which explains the mechanical noises and why they appeared to be going in circles. To their horror, the trio discovers they have landed in the room containing Ren's corpse. Levin realizes that the plaques contain the coordinates for every position a room will take as it cycles through the cube. She identifies one specific bridge room that aligns with the exit in the outer shell. They have to return to a specific set of coordinates and wait for the bridge to return to its original position. Levin calculates that the rooms will reach the exit in 2 moves. However, they must face one last set of traps. She realizes that the most lethal traps are identified by the power of a prime, complex math she cannot do in her head. Surprisingly, Kazan begins to speak. He solves the first complex equation in seconds. He is a savant, capable of genius-level mental calculations. With Kazan as their guide, they move through the final rooms. Quentin, trailing behind and complaining, nearly loses his head when a door closes on his neck. Worth uses the opportunity to push Quentin back, momentarily trapping him. But Quentin manages to reopen the door and catch up. Worth then tricks Quentin, opening a floor hatch that causes the cop to fall and hit his head, knocking him out. The trio of Worth, Levin, and Kazan reaches the edge again. They watch as a room slides down the tracks and locks into place in front of them, the bridge. Kazan, overwhelmed by the shifting rooms, is momentarily separated from them, but Worth manages to coax him back with the promise of candy. They enter the final room. When Kazan opens the last hatch, they are blinded by brilliant, white sunlight. They have found the way out. Worth refuses to leave, believing there is nothing worth living for outside. Suddenly, Quentin reappears and kills Levin with a doorknob. He then stabs Worth. As Kazan walks out into the sunlight toward freedom, Quentin tries to follow. Worth uses his remaining strength to hold Quentin's legs, keeping him in the room as it moves. Quentin is crushed to death, and Worth dies next to Levin's body. Kazan is the sole survivor of the cube. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to press the bell icon for more amazing videos like this.